The moment Adele turned her shoulder instead of her head, everything Meghan had spent years building cracked in silence, and insiders swear that in that single freezing second inside a $165 million Beverly Hills palace, the Duchess of Sussex realized the unthinkable truth: Hollywood wasn't rejecting her politely, it was erasing her completely. The night glittered with obscene wealth, dripping chandeliers, champagne rivers, and whispered power deals hiding behind fake smiles. But beneath that golden illusion was a social execution so precise, so brutal, that even seasoned A-listers felt the tension tightening like a noose. Meghan walked in like she owned the narrative, chin lifted, smile sharpened into that practiced weapon she had mastered long before she ever became a duchess, long before she learned how to turn attention into oxygen and oxygen into survival. But what she didn't realize was that this wasn't her stage anymore. This was Adele's kingdom now, and Adele had already decided who belonged and who didn't. Witnesses say Meghan made her entrance like a woman refusing to accept gravity itself, gliding across the marble floors as if every camera flash was confirmation that she still mattered, still ruled, still commanded attention the way she once did when the world couldn't stop saying her name. But the energy in that room was different, darker, colder, and filled with something Meghan had spent years trying to outrun: judgment. People watched her, yes, but not with admiration, with calculation. They weren't celebrating her, they were assessing her, measuring her worth like an investment that might not pay off. And trailing behind her like a ghost unsure if he belonged to the past or the present was Prince Harry, his posture stiff, eyes darting, his entire body betraying a truth he couldn't hide: that he wasn't comfortable here, wasn't wanted here, and maybe never would be. He stayed close to Meghan, almost clinging, not out of affection but out of survival, like she was the last piece of certainty he had left in a world that had quietly stopped making space for him. The whispers started instantly, invisible daggers thrown behind polite smiles. Some said Meghan looked desperate, others said she looked determined, but everyone agreed on one thing: this was a test. Hollywood doesn't embrace royalty. Hollywood dismantles it, strips it down, and rebuilds it into something profitable, or discards it completely. Meghan knew that. She had always known that. This wasn't just a party. This was an audition disguised as acceptance. Every glance mattered. Every reaction mattered. Every second was a gamble with her future. Because behind the champagne and designer gowns was a brutal truth nobody says out loud: Hollywood only loves you while you're useful. And then Adele appeared. The room shifted instantly, like gravity had chosen its true center. Conversation slowed, eyes followed her, and the invisible hierarchy revealed itself without a single word spoken. Adele didn't chase attention. Attention chased her. She didn't need validation. She was validation. And Meghan knew exactly what this moment could mean. Two British icons, both exiled in different ways, both rebuilding their identities in America, both rewriting their narratives, but only one of them had the power now. Meghan moved toward her carefully, deliberately, calculating every step, every gesture, every expression, because this wasn't just a greeting, this was a moment that could restore her legitimacy. But Adele never turned. She kept talking, kept laughing, kept existing like Meghan wasn't even there. Insiders say Meghan froze, her smile holding for just a second too long, the kind of smile that starts to crack when it realizes it's not being seen. She lingered there, waiting for acknowledgement, waiting for eye contact, waiting for something, anything that would confirm she still mattered. But nothing came. No glance, no nod, no warmth, just silence. Cold, intentional, devastating silence. And in Hollywood, silence isn't accidental. Silence is strategy. Silence is rejection. Silence is power. People nearby pretended not to notice, but they noticed everything. Because ignoring someone like Meghan Markle isn't just social behavior, it's a statement. It tells everyone watching exactly where the lines have been drawn. It tells them who's inside the circle and who's standing outside it, pretending they aren't. And Meghan knew it. She walked away, still smiling, still composed, but insiders say her eyes gave her away. That flicker, that fracture, that moment where confidence collapses into realization. Because this wasn't just Adele being busy. This wasn't just bad timing. This was something else, something deeper, something final. The rumors had already been swirling for months. Quiet but persistent whispers about unanswered messages, ignored gestures, failed attempts to build alliances. Meghan had reportedly tried to reach Adele before, extending olive branches, gifts, invitations, moves designed to create connection, to build bridges, but none of it had worked. Adele had remained distant, untouchable, unreachable. And now, in front of everyone, she made it clear why. Because Hollywood doesn't reward who you used to be. It rewards who you are right now. And right now, Adele was untouchable. Meghan, on the other hand, was being watched for signs of weakness. What made it worse was the pattern. Adele wasn't the only one keeping her distance. Mariah Carey, another titan who understood power better than anyone, stayed in her orbit, never drifting toward Meghan. Martha Stewart, the queen of reinvention herself, remained carefully detached. These weren't coincidences. These were signals. Signals Meghan couldn't ignore no matter how hard she tried to pretend everything was normal. Because in Hollywood, exclusion is never loud. It's quiet, surgical, permanent. Prince Harry felt it too. His discomfort wasn't subtle. His body language screamed what his words never would, that he didn't belong here, that this wasn't the life he was built for. He wasn't raised to chase approval. He wasn't raised to fight for relevance. He was raised to exist within certainty, within structure, within a system that guaranteed his place. But that system was gone now, and this one didn't owe him anything. As Meghan navigated the room, shaking hands, exchanging smiles, projecting confidence, the truth lingered behind every interaction. Respect in Hollywood isn't inherited, it's earned. And once it starts slipping away, it rarely comes back. Because this wasn't just about Adele. This was about everything. The canceled deals, the broken partnerships, the whispers about relevance fading faster than expected, the growing perception that Meghan and Harry weren't power players anymore, just former royalty trying to convince the world they still mattered. The illusion was cracking, and everyone could see it. And Adele's silence had said more than words ever could. It said Hollywood had made its decision. It said the distance wasn't temporary. It said the door wasn't just closing. It was already closed. What nobody saw in that moment, but everyone felt, was the invisible collapse of Meghan's carefully engineered comeback. Because when Adele refused to acknowledge her, it wasn't just a social rejection, it was the final confirmation of a narrative Meghan had been desperately trying to outrun ever since she and Harry fled the monarchy with promises of independence, power, and unstoppable influence, only to discover that freedom came with a brutal condition nobody warned them about. Irrelevance was always waiting in the shadows, ready to swallow them whole the second the world stopped needing their story. Witnesses say Meghan's composure never fully broke, but something shifted behind her eyes, a flicker of disbelief mixed with fury. Because she wasn't supposed to be the outsider, she wasn't supposed to be the one standing on the edges of conversations that once would have revolved around her. And yet here she was, drifting through a room full of power brokers who had quietly decided she was no longer essential. The humiliation wasn't loud, it wasn't dramatic, it wasn't explosive, it was worse. It was subtle, it was polite, it was permanent. And Harry, standing beside her, looked like a man watching a slow-motion disaster he couldn't stop. His jaw tight, his shoulders tense, his entire presence radiating the kind of helplessness that comes from realizing the sacrifice he made, the family he lost, the country he left, the identity he abandoned had not guaranteed the acceptance he thought it would. Because in that moment, surrounded by billionaires, legends, and cultural architects, Harry wasn't a prince. He was just another guest hoping someone would still care enough to notice him. The truth was suffocating, and insiders could feel it pressing against every smile Meghan forced into place as she navigated the party like a performer refusing to leave the stage even after the audience had stopped applauding. She laughed when she needed to, nodded when expected, leaned into conversations with surgical precision, but the emotional arithmetic had already changed. Because respect in Hollywood doesn't exist in the past tense, and Meghan's greatest weapon, her narrative, was losing its momentum. People weren't talking about her future anymore. They were dissecting her decline. They were analyzing the Spotify fallout, whispering about the explosive accusations that labeled her and Harry as difficult, unpredictable, and dangerously dependent on their royal past instead of building something undeniably new. The Netflix deal that once symbolized their dominance now hovered over them like a ticking clock, its future uncertain, its promises unfulfilled in the eyes of those who measured success in relentless productivity, not emotional storytelling. And Meghan's lifestyle brand, once hyped as the next empire in the making, had gone quiet, its silence interpreted by critics as hesitation, weakness, or worse, failure. Every missed deadline, every delayed launch, every unanswered question became another crack in the image she had fought so hard to maintain, and Hollywood, ruthless and impatient, was already searching for the next story to replace hers. But what cut deepest wasn't just the industry's skepticism. It was Adele, because Adele represented everything Meghan wanted to be in this new world. Powerful, self-made, respected without explanation, and untouchable without needing to chase validation. Adele didn't need the monarchy. Adele didn't need need controversy. Adele didn't need reinvention. She existed on her own terms, immune to the cycles of hype and rejection that devoured everyone else. And her silence wasn't emotional. It was strategic. It told everyone watching that Meghan wasn't part of her orbit. And in Hollywood, proximity to power defines your survival. That single decision, that single moment of deliberate detachment echoed louder than any public statement ever could, because it confirmed what Meghan feared most, that the industry she had gambled everything to conquer might never truly accept her. Harry felt it too, but his pain was different, heavier, older, because while Meghan was fighting to build something new, Harry was still grieving what he had destroyed. The bridges burned behind him weren't theoretical. They were real. They were permanent. And now, standing in a room that refused to fully embrace him, he faced the terrifying possibility that he had traded certainty for illusion. But the royal family he once resented had given him identity, purpose, and permanence. Hollywood gave him uncertainty, scrutiny, and silence. The applause here wasn't guaranteed. The loyalty here wasn't unconditional. And the respect here wasn't inherited. It was earned, defended, and easily lost. For the first time, Harry looked like a man questioning everything, not out loud, not publicly, but internally, in the quiet spaces where regret grows fastest. As the night dragged on, Meghan refused to retreat, refusing to surrender to the narrative forming around her, because retreat would mean acceptance, and acceptance would mean defeat. She stayed visible, stayed radiant, stayed unbreakable, even as the emotional damage settled beneath her skin like poison. Because Meghan Markle had built her entire identity on transformation. Actress to Duchess, outsider to insider, forgotten to unforgettable, and she wasn't about to let Hollywood decide her final chapter without a fight. But the truth she couldn't escape was simple and brutal. Power in Hollywood isn't granted. It's proven. And until Meghan delivered something undeniable, something impossible to ignore, she would remain trapped in this limbo, neither fully rejected nor fully accepted, suspended between the myth of who she was and the uncertainty of who she might become. By the time the party ended, nothing had visibly collapsed, but everything had changed. Meghan walked out with her head high, her smile intact, her dignity preserved for the cameras, but insiders say the emotional aftershock followed her all the way home, because the silence she experienced that night didn't stay in Beverly Hills. It followed her into every meeting, every negotiation, every future attempt to reclaim the narrative she once controlled effortlessly. Adele hadn't yelled, Adele hadn't confronted her, Adele hadn't exposed her, Adele had done something far more devastating. She had ignored her. And in Hollywood, being ignored isn't just rejection, it's disappearance. The world Meghan and Harry fought to enter had finally revealed its rules, and those rules were merciless, indifferent, and unforgiving. Because fame can be earned, fame can be lost, but relevance, the one thing Meghan needed most, could never be demanded. It could only be proven.